Willkommen, bienvenue, and welcome back to my channel. Frohe Weihnachten, Joyeux Noel, and Merry Christmas. So happy holidays to everybody who celebrates Christmas. We are celebrating this year because Hubby is the Christmas and I am the Hanukkah. So I wanted to show how I decorated our front porch this year in celebration of Hubby's holiday. So if this is the type of content you are interested in, follow along and I'll see you at the end. Okie dokie. So I've got the styrofoam, and this is for the doghouse / gingerbread cookie house. So I need to figure out how I'm going to draw this. Okay, so I want arched. I'm not going to go with that. And ruler. Okay. Now, I don't want the sides to be straight. So unfortunately, I did not have this in the center of the screen, so I'm basically just drawing out a gingerbread shaped house, and then I'm going to cut it out and snap off the edges, as you can see in the next spot. At this point, it's wash, rinse, repeat, break off all your edges, and make sure you have a nice clean cut. I'm later on going to take my hot tool and smooth out the round part in the center of the doghouse. Remember to use proper PPE and a respirator when doing this, or at least have a window open like I do, so you can have good ventilation and a cross breeze, because you are burning chemicals. And at this point is when my microphone died on me, but I'm using some of the leftover scraps from the inside of the dog door to basically give support for the poles that I'm going to use. I'm using the same poles that I used from the Halloween decor, and I'm just basically making little backer parts, little slots for where these poles are going to go with the scraps. I am using the same glue that I used, the Gorilla Glue. Just remember to use some form of foam safe glue when doing this, otherwise you're just going to dissolve your project. I then used a heavy weight such as a paint can or something to weigh it down so it doesn't shift while it's curing. So now that we have the supports on, it's time to paint it. Let's go ahead and do that. And there you go. I added a little bit of brown craft paint around the outside of it just to make it look more like a cookie, like maybe it got burned a little bit. So we'll let that dry, and then we can go to the next step of doing the foam and the caulking. So I gotta let that dry. We got this dried now. I got laundry going in the background, so I may do this as a voiceover, but I've got some candy canes from the Dollar Tree. I've got some ball pin balls. I ordered these off of Amazon. And some fake candies, but again, Amazon. Caulking and what is a knockoff version of Great Stuff. So yeah, paid $2.99 for this at Ollie's Army. Let's go ahead and get this started. I'm going to start off with the foam first so that it has time to set up, and then I'll go in with the caulking, and I want to do a wreath on the front of the door, but I want it to look like a cookie. So that may be something I experiment with later. Probably about the size of that little plate. So I may cut that out of foam and then do a paint trick on it. I don't know. But these candy canes are going to be a little long. So I'm going to have to figure out how to cut these down. And there we go. Now, the bottom's going to be covered up by the foam anyway, so I don't need to really worry about that. Let's go ahead and get this one started. Even though I'm using the great stuff or knockoff version of it, remember to be in a ventilated area because this stuff does off gas and it is kind of actually flammable, so be careful with that. Remember, proper PPE, and I have a basement window open, so just keep it safe. I'm going to go ahead and stick in the balls into the foam while it's still tacky so that they adhere to the structure itself and I don't have to glue them on later. So I need to let that set up and then I can continue doing the rest of the piping and everything else. So I'll be back in a few hours. So while that's curing, I'll go ahead and take this scrap of styrofoam that I have. Now I left this part in here to show you that not everything on the internet is perfect, hence why this didn't work out, but I'll try it again afterwards. So now let's go downstairs and go ahead and put some caulking on this. Try to throw some of the paint on there and then swirl it together like the cookie says. Here I'm just going ahead and paint it with the base coat I used for the gingerbread house, and I'm going to use some of the caulking to basically act as frosting. Again, this did not work as planned, so I'm still keeping it in there so you can see that maybe this will work for somebody else, but it did not work for me, and I may have needed to let the actual underpaint dry first before I did this. But essentially I was going to drip some paint on there and swirl it around like it was frosting so that it would give the effect of the cookie. Let's see. Never done this before. That kind of looks like shit. So, let's just say we didn't do that. I'm going to use a little bit of the caulking to glue down. I'm using the dollar store caulking as frosting. I'm also using the piping tip that is the nozzle. Again, trying to be decorative. I am not a cookie designer in any way, shape, or form, and I'm not the best at decorating any form of pastry. So this is my best that I could do, and I'm sorry if I made other people mad, but this is the best you're gonna get from me. That's why I'd never ask people to have me do anything like this for any holiday. Okay, so since I ran out of caulking, I'm going to show you how to do this if you've never done this before. Push down, pull out, takes the caulk out, okay? Now, this little hole right here is where you put in the tip, and then you nip the tip. You use this part right here to puncture the inside. Okay, and hold that back down, get it out of the way, put this in, and make a mess. So that's how you change out a caulking tip. Hopefully that information was helpful for somebody out there. I know we don't always play with these things, but we also don't use them as cake decoration tools. So Hopefully that helps, and just remember to use your imagination and have fun, because that's all that counts when it comes to decorating for Christmas. And again, this is from the Dollar Tree, so it didn't have to cost too much either. Okay. Meh. Rule number 1, don't ask me to make cookies. Okay, I'll let this cure for a few days and then we'll figure out this whole cookie situation for the wreath. Okay, let's try this method again. Ziploc bag. Trying to do something different. Don't need stuff all over my hands, so gloves. So the other method I tried is basically putting the caulking into the Ziploc bag and adding the paint to it to tint it. Now it didn't come out as dark as I wanted it to, but I went back later and touched it up with the paint itself. I then nipped the tip with a pair of scissors and basically used it as a piping bag. You can use a piping bag, but this is a cheaper method of doing it than paying for an actual professional piping bag. So as you can see, I started off with doing some hatch work and it didn't look exactly the way I thought it was going to, so I added a little bit more decoration. This was just going to be a simple little wreath and I needed it to look like foliage. I was going to later on push a little bow into it and also the candies to make it look more like a holiday wreath. There are other cookie techniques out there that probably people know better than I do, but this was my attempt at making a cookie wreath out of styrofoam and house caulking. So, yeah, it kind of worked. So here is the mistake, and there's the remake. So that needs to cure, and hopefully it doesn't drip or anything. The house is doing well. I'm gonna put another layer of foam at the top once all this frosting cures, and then we'll be able to install it. I'll put that on there, do some touch-ups, and we're ready for the reveal. I really hope that you enjoyed that type of content, and remember, the holidays does not need to cost too much money. I accumulated things that I've had over the years and stuff that I got from the Dollar Tree and from Home Depot. So with a little bit of creativity and some holiday magic, you can make whatever your heart desires. And this is the type of content you are interested in. Remember to like, share, subscribe, and follow along for another video where we do crafting, Barbies, sewing, which I haven't done in a while, or whatever. So, we'll see you next time. Tschüssi!